So, like I was saying, we're trying to look at, please, I hope my screen is visible. Yes,
Yes, sir.
this is the same link we always use for, and that is advantage of Zoom. We don't need to be opening link every day. This same link for all our classes anytime. So, uh, let me quickly round up on stimulus, response, and reinforcement. So, the teacher says, "Good morning, Tunde." That is a stimuli, a stimulus. Then Tunde says, "Good morning, sir." That is a response. And then the teacher says, "Very good." That is reinforcement. So when this thing is repeated many times over and over again, it becomes an habit to Tunde. Tunde now becomes somebody that can naturally, whether consciously or unconsciously, answer good morning Tunde with "good morning, sir." Why? He already knows that the last time he did that, the teacher labeled it as correct. So if you do that repeatedly many times, it becomes an habit. And that's how we form habit. We say habit comes from consistency. If you do something good for over and over and over again, many times, it becomes part of you. So it becomes an habit. That's how we form habits generally. And if it's something bad somebody is doing too, it also becomes an habit. So let's give another example. Imagine you are teaching a small child how to do multiplication, and you say 2 times 2, and the child say 4. You say excellent. You understand? Then you said 3 times 2. The child said 6. Then you said very good. Now, if you should repeat that circle over and over again, the child will just begin responding automatically because the child now becomes very used to it. So please give me 1 minute. I need to attend to something. I'm sorry. I meet you guys. I will need to pause recording. So it's necessary. So that is all about stimulus, response, and of course, reinforcement. Anywhere you see that now, I think it should sink. You should understand what they're trying to say. It shouldn't just be like, excuse me, somebody is just speaking above your head. Now, how does teacher use this method when they were using it? Then, how is it, or how was it used? Now, the teacher will select specific aspect of language that the pupils need to master. For instance, vocabulary, grammar, like sentences, phrases, or dialogues, sentence patterns, etc. So the teacher then presents them to the learners, usually orally first, like with the words of mouth. You read it to them first. So the pupils listen and repeat after the teacher several times. For instance, if the teacher say she is going to school, you still do it a lot in primary school today, not for children. She is going to school. Then the student also say she is going to school. Then teacher says it again. She is going to school. The pupils also respond, she is going to school. Now the repetition continues until the student can produce the sentence correctly without the teacher first saying it. That was how they used the pattern. Then they also use pattern drills. Pattern drill simply means repeatedly practicing a particular structure while changing some of the words. Repeatedly practicing a particular structure, a sentence structure, while you shovel, you change some of the words. We have done something about drill before, but let me still explain, because if I say that drill patterns or pattern drills are repeatedly practicing a particular sentence structure while changing some of the words, we still might not understand. But let's take an example. Suppose you are a teacher and you tell your pupils that I am going to dash. Then the teacher can conduct a drill. So the student may, like if teacher says, I am going to school, the student will say, I am going to school. Then if the teacher also say, I am going to the market, you understand? The student also say, I am going to the market. So if the teacher says, I am going to the church, what are you doing? It's the same I am going to, but now you are trying to drill it by changing pattern, so that they will know that you can use that same I am going to for church, for market, for hospital, for just anywhere. So what is happening is you are changing a particular part of the sentence. So the grammatical pattern is I am going to. it remains constant, but you are changing something. So when the learners should repeat that after many times, what will happen is that they would have mastered I am going to. So next time now when they just need to say, maybe their mothers at home or fathers at home ask them, what's happening? Where are you going to? They will be able to say, I am going to the shop. You understand? Why? They already practiced and learned the grammar aspect of I am going to. So they know what it actually represents or stands for. So another pattern drill that is very common is, if you want to teach them something in the past, you say, I play football. Then the student repeat. If you say, I play football, dash. And then the student repeat, yesterday. So the student say, I play football yesterday. So the teacher says, I wash my clothes. You also say yesterday. You also say, you can say, I cook rice yesterday. What are you trying to teach them? That is another pattern of of pattern drill. This time around, it is the grammar that you are changing. So if you say, so the teacher is trying to establish a grammatical pattern. For instance, the present and the past. You play, you played. Wash, you washed. You cook, you cooked. You understand? So when they repeat this several times, it becomes part of them. So that is the method we are trying to talk about in this place. Then they also talk about dialogue. If you go on now, there was a place we talked about dialogue, and when we talk about dialogue there, I think somebody is not with us here anymore. Okay, that is the other madam. She must be a very busy person. So dialogue is also important. The teacher may prepare a short conversation, for them. When you talk about dialogue, I talk, you talk. So if I may prepare something like saying, let's say I'm teacher and I say good morning. The pupil says good morning. Then I say, how are you? They say, I am fine, thank you. Or the people may practice with one another, like, what is your name? My name is John. Where do you live? I live in Lagos. How old are you? I am 10 years old. You understand that those kind of, you know what we're talking about, because people still use it in primary section to even to this our day. It's not something of 1960 alone. It's still very relevant to today. Like, there's a statement there that mentioned that it is still relevant to today. So oral language comes before written language. The oral language always comes before written language. So another important character of audio lingual method is that, just like the arrangement of the name audio lingua, the audio, that is the oral, always comes before the written one. So it is that learner generally hear and speak before they start reading and writing. For example, if the teacher wants to teach the boy is playing football, the teacher doesn't necessarily have to begin by writing it on the board. Instead, you allow them to listen. So when the student listen to the boy is playing football, they listen, they repeat it, the sentence is presented in written form. So the first stage is they listen to it. After listening to it, they speak it. When they speak it, then they read it on the board. That is when the teacher will need to write it on the board on the written form. In the written form, and then they read it. Then when they read it, they will not write it down in their own notes, in their own notebooks. So the pattern is now from listening to speaking, from speaking to reading, from reading to writing. That is how we come about the LSRW. The LSRW. When the method audiolingua follows is that you first present it to them you won't write it on the board first. You say it. It always starts with the oral form. That is the word of mouth, the audio. You say it to them, they repeat after you. After many times repetition of that process, then you write it on the board. Now they write it. Now they read it from the board. You understand? So instead of you just saying it and they repeat after you, which is listening and speaking, the next thing now is when you write it on the board, they start reading it from the board instead of repeating it from your own mouth. So they read it from the board, and once they finish reading from the board, the next thing is they learn to write it down. What they are seeing, they write it down in their notes. So that is LSRW: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Now, there are some errors. Errors are corrected immediately in this kind of method. Now, the audiolingual method does not encourage errors to continue. When you said, I am good. Okay, let me give a very practical example. But why, before we look for example that fits this, why is it that the audio lingual method does not support errors? It does not encourage error at all. At the slightest appearance of error, the error will be corrected immediately. The reason is that don't forget that at the beginning of this class, we said that this method is a method that is used to form habits. It is used to form habit. So they use the psychological behaviorism approach, which is you are trying to form habits in people. And if you are forming habit, you know that once they learn the wrong thing from the very day one, they are hearing that thing first, and it sticks, and they continue practicing the wrong version of that thing, it also become part of them. That is why this method doesn't encourage errors. Any single error, it will be corrected first before the process continue. So, and the reason is to guide against forming bad habits. Now, for instance, if you as a teacher should say she goes to school every day, and the student say she go to school every day, there is an error there. You said she goes, but the student are repeating after you by saying she go. Where is the es? So the moment you notice that, you instantly correct that, so that when they grow up, they don't go and be blowing wrong grammar by saying she go to school every day. She goes to school every day. So the moment you notice that, the teacher will not, we said it is a process of stimulus, response, and reinforcement. So the moment you give the stimulus, she goes to school every day, and you get the response, she go to school every day, your reinforcement will be no, she goes to school every day. That's reinforcement. So we said that reinforcement is a form of remark. You are trying to assess and okay, no, this is correct. Oh no, this is not correct. So no, she goes to school every day. So the student will now repeat again by saying she goes to school every day. The teacher will now say, very good. You understand? The teacher means you are correct. Very good. So you must make sure the correct form is being practiced, repeated after you, because you are forming habit. Now, the last thing they mentioned then, well, not critically the last thing, is reinforcement or reward is important. We talked about that reinforcement or reward is important. Reinforcement or reward is important. And when we look at that, now, when learners respond correctly, the teacher, you say you've reinforced the behavior now. So when we say reinforcement or reward, we are not necessarily talking about money. Like you now say, oh, come and take sweet. No, that's not all about reward or reinforcement. Basically, reward could be, or reinforcement could be excellent, good boy, very good, correct, wonderful, you are amazing, all those kind of things. Or even you applaud them, you tell their fellow students to say, okay, clap for Johnson, pa 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 pa. Those are reward or reinforcement. So, and the idea of that is you want positive reinforcement to encourage learners to repeat the correct response. So when they say correct and you reinforce them by rewarding them with maybe an applaud or wonderful, wow, look at wonderful children, they will be happy. So they want to repeat it again the correct way. That is it. Now, one of the last things mentioned there is that the method is teacher-centered. The method is teacher-centered. So when you talk about the audio-lingual method, it is teacher-centered because if the teacher should make any error, that error stick for life in those children. So the teacher has significant control over the process. Why? The teacher is the one that controls what is taught, what students say, the vocabulary used, the grammatical structures practiced, when students should speak, and what counts as the correct response. So that is that on that. Excuse me. Now, what is the major aim of this method? The main purpose is to help your learners to master basic vocabulary and grammatical structures of a language, and in this case, English. in this case, English. Now, let's take, for example, if learners master vocabulary and grammar, for instance, now they'll be able to use those structures whenever they need it or whenever they need them. For example, if you teach them, may I have dash, and then they start practicing, may I have some water, may I have a pencil, may I have your book, may I have some food. Now they now know how to use may I have. That is the thing we are trying to talk about. But there is one big problem in the picture of this method. If we don't talk about this big problem, the whole thing we are saying will not look complete. I'm sorry for this method of teaching I'm using. I know some of you might not. This thing is too long. The thing is, we promised ourselves that we will look at each content philosophically, and from the course material where you talked about philosophy, you already know what philosophy. It breaks down something to the very simplest form for somebody to be able to understand. So that is the method we're adopting. So now, what is the main challenge? Knowing vocabulary and grammar does not automatically mean that someone can communicate effectively. Now, consider a student who memorized "Good morning, how are you?" and the response is "I am fine, thank you." Then if somebody now asks that kind of child, "How was your journey yesterday?" the child will just freeze. You don't know what to say again, because the only thing that he has memorized is "Good morning, how are you?" The child will now look like a dummy. That the only thing that is in the head of the dummy is just "Good morning, how are you? I am fine, thank you." So if anything should come up again aside that, something, the child will just freeze. He doesn't know what to say again. And why? That is because it's only a particular response that the child has memorized, and the language is wider than that. So I think we have talked a lot about this. So in summary of this part, don't forget the stimulus, response, reinforcement, and then habit formation. And of course, don't forget the part where I talked about the order of arrangement: listening. You listen, you speak, you read, then you write. The LSRW. So I've used their examples. I've exhausted them in my definitions. So the next we are meant to talk about is communicative teaching methods, but we don't have the time. We've expended a lot of time on this class already, so we'll not be able to take that. Excuse me. We will also take the second class, but not now. I need you guys to rest for 10 minutes, but I want to hear your decision. Do you have the luxury of time now for the second class? Or how do you want us to do it? Please unmute yourself and let's discuss. How do you want us to do the second class?
For me, I'm good. 10 minutes is better if you insist.
So let's hear from Madam. The other Madam, please, is that a welcome idea? Let's rest for 10 minutes, then we kick. That will just be 45 minutes. I will make sure I reduce my talk. 45 minutes and we are done, because we have GST in the night by 9:30.
How, how do we join again? Because this
Is
is
this same link? Oh, sorry, I didn't know that I did not tell you the link. Now, this is the advantage of Zoom. All our classes now, just click on this link. Is this same link we'll be using continuously? Whether I want to do PED144, GS10, any class at all, this is the link I'll be using.
the link, the video. How do I access it?
Sure,
If I
you
want
have
to
it. The moment we are done now, I'm recording it. I will upload it on YouTube instantly, so you have access to it. All right, ma'am. Okay,
So
so
we'll rest for 10 minutes and start the second class.
yes, let's meet by 6:40. See you guys by 6:40. I would have uploaded what I want to upload by then, and we'll start the second one. Thank you for your time this evening. Do enjoy your short break.
All right, sir.